When I tell you I'll be fine.
You know, honestly, this if we had our way, this wouldn't even be a podcast. We'd just sing the whole time.
I still want you by my
That wasn't
side.
an invitation. Welcome back to Five's a Crowd, everybody.
Hey!
This is a podcast, mind you, not a terrible Utah talent segment.
I'm on the outside.
Oh, gosh.
Oh. Speaking of that, we are the five silly men from Five's a Crowd. We got Zach, Tony, Austin, Chris, and myself,
Howdy
Cameron.
do.
Hola. Duty how?
Broadcasting at you from good old Utah.
Yeah.
Utah.
You betcha.
Who knows
With
the
its
Utah song?
mountains
Anyone?
and valleys,
You do.
Utah.
What?
Do you really? There's really a song.
You know this? You guys don't know the song?
No.
I don't know the song. I just know it exists.
I didn't even know
Utah,
it existed.
We love thee.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. Like,
I think that's it.
I don't know that
I only
part.
heard a
Wait,
part.
can we auto-tune that later?
I think doesn't every single state and country
Oh,
song
I'm
go
sure.
something about "We love thee"?
Probably.
Probably every single
With its
Ireland, we love thee. Something stupid.
That sounds like a Garth Brooks song.
Yeah.
Oh, Ireland, I'm coming home.
Probably.
It is a song.
But today we are actually going to talk about something that is really, really close to home. In fact, just a stone's throw away. These events took place primarily in Salt Lake City, the good old capital of Utah, the
Yeah.
state in which we live.
I thought this topic would be super fun because we have something that majority of other podcasts don't, even if they try to cover this topic. And that is that 4 of the 5 around this table all have backgrounds in Mormonism or in LDS.
The Mormons.
The Mormons.
That is
The
the
Mormons,
correct
yes, that's the correct answer. Yes, the 4 of us, excluding Austin,
Yeah.
are members of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints.
Austin, would you like to be?
You could.
Nah, I'm good.
We can make it happen real quick.
news.
I'm good, bro. I've grown up around it my whole life. I'm good.
Would you like to hear a message about Jesus Christ?
I have many times. He's my bud.
Oh, but no, yeah. So this definitely hits home because what we're about to talk to you about is, and you may have seen it on Netflix, but the murder among the Mormons.
Mormons.
And we hope that you're going to gain a little bit more insight, from people who are actually part of that religion, part of that state, whose parents were around during that time because it
Yes.
happened a little bit before we were born.
Yeah.
2 years
Yes.
before we were born.
But basically the story
for me.
starts.
Oh, aren't you special?
I guess actually
No,
we'll give
I'm
you. Are you special? Yeah, I mean he's pretty special.
I'm I know.
It's like that. Well, who is that? Oh my gosh, I forgot the actor's name. He. Oh my gosh.
Leo DiCaprio.
No, he was in.
Tropic Thunder.
No, big dude. And then he got skinny. He was in Get Him to the Greek.
Jonah Hill.
Jonah Hill. You just reminded me of that gif of Jonah Hill when he's like at the awards show and they pan the camera to him and he's like,
He's like, no, no.
too cool for that. Get that out of here. But just to give you some background, so the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, or the Mormons, basically founded the state of Utah.
Yeah.
So, the religion
Fun
started.
fact. They
Go
also
ahead.
found Las Vegas, too.
They did. Another fun fact, my family actually founded most of Ogden.
Which is Spanish
What?
for...
You got a bunch of birches just running
Oh,
around.
yeah. Have you ever
Ogden?
heard of Birch Creek?
That's for real?
That's my family.
Really?
Birch
Yeah.
Creek Mercantile.
Yeah, dude. Birch Creek Mill, Birch Creek, all that was my
Really?
family. Here's the sucky part of it, okay?
You don't
So-
got any of that land.
It was my great grandfather, I believe.
I'm pouring a drink. I'm not peeing into a bucket, I
He
promise.
took the microphone into the bathroom with him. But it was my great grandfather apparently had a falling out with his family. And they were the
Sorry. I'm sorry.
so
I'm
loud.
I'm so sorry. Okay, we're done.
That was great.
Oh my gosh. Anyways,
Shake it.
I got the peach chills listening to that.
right? Now we all have to go. He's got a bathtub.
Holy
It's like a trough.
This is all over the place.
I swear we're gonna get to the point.
Talk
here
about
at
great
some point.
granddad.
My great grandfather apparently had a falling out with my family, the family that founded that area, and he pieced out to freaking Arizona, and they cut him off. So
now
my
you get
line
nothing.
of the family's got jack's shiz, nothing. We have nothing.
Jack squat.
Jack squat, none of it.
I know.
Bunch of crap.
That sucks.
But yeah, we've been finding a lot of relatives and stuff
Nice.
that are from that.
Cool.
Apparently, we're also related to the people that sell the pine trees around Christmas.
Are they-
Have you seen the
are
birch,
they
the
birch
birch tree
trees?
like
Yeah.
Christmas trees? Yeah, that's my family apparently.
So have you guys done like the whole ancestry.com
Oh, yeah.
thing?
Oh, yeah.
And
Yeah,
you can-
genealogy is a huge part of the LDS Church.
Yes.
So like my dad's way into it, my mom's into it, all that stuff. So we've found out things like we're related to Daniel Boone, we're related to George McClellan, the guy that ran against Abraham Lincoln for presidency.
I'm related to Walt Disney.
No way.
You want to know something that'll blow your mind?
Yeah.
Jess is directly related to the uncle of Jesus Christ.
What?
Wow. That goes way back.
Way back.
way back.
Wow.
All right, one up.
Dude, that's so true.
All I gotta do, I got my in now. I'm good.
I know your uncle, kinda vicariously.
It's all who you know.
I'm related through adoption to Pocahontas. We learned that.
Really?
John Savage was adopted by Palatine, who was Pocahontas' father.
Dude, genealogy is rad. My wife's related to Lewis and Clark,
What?
right? Two different lines, but they both Lewis and Clark. Wild. But so let me paint the picture for you. It's 1985 in good old Salt Lake, Utah. I mean, if you know anything about Utah, it's a pretty chill place. It's pretty calm, pretty tame. Well, this year, the entire state was rocked by 3 bombings that all happened within days of each other. And all of this was the culmination of basically some crazy things that happened around the church and stuff in Salt Lake.
Insane things.
Insane things. Like this was one of the craziest things I've ever heard of happening in this state. And we even had a hurricane drop on top of our basketball arena.
A tornado.
Tornado.
It's all right.
They're the same.
We're in this together.
They're both spinny wind tunnels.
One of those hurricanes from the sky. Boom.
just dropped right down on it.
Utah's weird.
But anyway, so we got this guy named Mark Hoffman. Now, Mark Hoffman is basically like an antique salesman. He's an antique searcher. Like, what would you call that?
Antique dealer.
Antique dealer.
Yeah.
Someone who's just looking for stuff.
It just sets out to find
Almost like
anything
a-
and everything antique and
Historian.
yeah,
Historical dealer.
historical.
Going through like old bookshelves and stuff.
Like almost like a treasure hunter in a sense.
Kinda.
But
Ooh.
for
I like it.
historical things. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And so at this time, the church was really excited about finding documents from early church history. Everyone was all about church history because as far like with the Mormons, the history starts in New York. That's where Joseph Smith had his vision of Jesus Christ and God. That's where he found the golden plates, which were eventually translated into the Book of Mormon. And there was a lot of persecution among the church. Like a lot of people just did not like it. They wanted it out of their cities, out of their states. So basically the Mormons were pushed out of New York across the country to what became Utah.
Now
So-
that's crazy. Like, what pushed them so far east? That's
Oh,
so
they were
crazy.
like
West.
They even stopped
Hardcore.
in Kirtland and
That's
all
Palmyra,
that
New York.
stuff.
yeah,
and-
you're right. You're right.
yeah.
I'm sorry.
yeah.
But then they finally just kept coming this way, and then
Yeah. So it was all the persecution. They literally were constantly like mobs would attack them. Mobs would kill Mormons. Mobs would pull Joseph Smith out of his home, cover him in tar and feathers constantly. And like tons and tons of stuff was always going on. And they were
that-
just pushed away.
and that's where, what's his name that we're doing this about? What's his
Mark Hoffman.
Mark
Hoffman?
Hoffman. Yeah, that's where Mark Hoffman comes in because the church is looking for historical documents and it's a huge thing. So he goes back to these old places of Kirtland, Ohio and
Palmyra,
New York and, Rochester, Nauvoo, all that stuff. And he's looking for these documents because the church was pushed out so quickly that pretty much it was just leave your stuff and go. So a lot of
Got you.
historical documents were just left behind
Yeah.
to fend for themselves. And so that's what led him. And there was actually a lot of times where he actually had dealers out in New York and in those areas that he would deal with, bring stuff back to here. And, and ultimately there was one huge one that he was working on after, we'll get to it, but after the one document he found, he was working on some other ones with a guy from New York.
Yeah.
So
Well, and it was so funny too during this Netflix special. This entire conversation all sounded like a giant drug deal.
Oh
Because
yeah.
it was like,
Oh yeah.
Sketchy.
it was super
They
sketchy
made
sounding.
it sounded so
it's
weird.
It's insane how these documents produce so much money too. That's what was making it weird for me. It's like, oh yeah, $2 million for a paper. I'm like, what?
Back in 1985,
yeah, 1985.
$2 million for a single document.
So it was crazy. Like everyone was abuzz with this. They all wanted this, like these documents, these papers, everything. And well, this Mark Hoffman, he had been a pretty like highly esteemed dealer with all this stuff. Like he had an eye for it. He would find things that nobody else could find, and he would just come across them. And he was a big deal in this community. Well, that's when, fast forward a little bit, that's when he finds the most ground shaking document of all. He finds this old Book of Mormon, like really, really old. Like
I thought it was a Bible.
It was Bible.
Was it a Bible?
It was a Bible.
Okay, my bad. So an old Bible, like really early edition Bible. And he brings it home, and like his wife's looking at it and stuff. He's super excited about it. Well, she's flipping through it, and she finds that there's like kind of a piece of the
Couple pages are
a
stuck
couple
together.
pages are like stuck together,
Yeah.
but they're kind of peeling to where she could see that something was inside it. So she tells him, he comes over, they kind of looking at it, they're pulling it apart. Well, he gets it to separate, and he pulls out this paper, and it turns out that this paper is a letter from someone named Martin Harris. So in church history, Martin Harris is a very big part of the reformation of the
Yeah,
church.
the finding of the church.
And he was one of the scribes for Joseph Smith. So like I said, Joseph Smith found these plates of brass and in gold, and he was translating them, but he would translate them to a scribe who would write down everything he was saying. Martin Harris is also one of the few people who actually saw the plates in real life. Like there were a few witnesses that were mentioned to be able to see these plates.
How many witnesses were there?
There was
7?
no, yeah, that's
3
right.
and 5.
Yes,
Yeah.
yeah.
So, well, and it's very important to note that Joseph Smith was the founder of the Latter-day Saints, and that's how the Book of Mormon was
He
created,
found it.
right?
So
it was from these plates.
He restored it.
Exactly.
Yeah,
So,
restored.
so again,
Right,
the very premise of our church and our belief system is that when Christ was on earth, he founded his church. He had his 12 apostles. He proselyted, all that stuff while he was on earth. Well, when he died, his apostles continued to share the gospel throughout the world until they were all persecuted and ultimately ended up dying. The earth fell into the dark ages, and God's authority that he had on the earth while Jesus was there was removed from the earth. Okay? So then we believe that when Jesus Christ and God appeared to Joseph, they were reforming Christ's very own church, the same one that was on the earth when he was alive. He gave that authority to Joseph Smith. Joseph Smith gave it to Oliver Cowdery, Martin Harris, and various other members to form the church, and God directed him in creating the church. So in that, he was given these golden plates, which is essentially a record of the early Americas. We're talking like ancient, like 600 BC, people from Jerusalem came to America, and this is their life, on these plates. They scribed them on these
then
plates.
all the way through after the resurrection of Christ and everything like that.
Exactly. So ultimately, it's just another book that confirms that Jesus Christ is the Son of God. He's our ultimate Redeemer. Through him, we'll be forgiven of our sins and be able to be resurrected. Well, that was so. If the door opened, and it was very ominous. Jesus. So fast forward.
I mean, she's a direct descendant of the uncle.
That's true.
So
We just had Jesus. What is that? A cousin?
That is
so
correct.
Jesus is like great cousin just walk in. So anyways, fast forward. Okay, so all these documents are very important. Well, he finds this document that essentially is written by Martin Harris. So one of the three witnesses, one of the people that scribed for Joseph Smith. And in this document, it was a letter he actually wrote saying that Joseph Smith didn't see God and Jesus Christ. He was talked to and led to the plates by a white salamander.
Hence the name, the White Salamander Letter.
Yes, exactly. So just imagine, after everything I've just explained to you about this church, and we've got how many members do we have? At that time, we probably had like 10 million.
Yeah, and it's the cornerstone of our religion. Like,
is that story in
the story, the finding
Mormon
of the plates and Joseph Smith, like that is the cornerstone of the Mormon religion itself.
Yeah. So you can imagine that this made massive shockwaves throughout the Mormon community, throughout Utah.
And then he even claims the letter itself, written by Martin Harris, claims that it wasn't Joseph Smith that actually found the golden plates, that it was his brother Alvin.
I think it was Alvin,
I
the older
believe, who
brother.
was actually led to the gold plates and saw them, and then decided, I don't want anything to do with this, and turned away. And then that's when the white salamander came to Joseph Smith and led him basically to the plates. With magic and all this stuff, he was able to create it and stuff like that. And
Yeah.
so
and he was very careful with these documents. Like, he was very hush hush about it. He was afraid that if he brought these documents to the church right away, that they would try to hide them. Like, he was concerned that they were going to hide the truth from people.
yeah. In fact, he even had a guy come over and photograph him.
Yep.
And he said, "Who?"
Another kind of dealer.
Yeah, and so because he wanted to, just in case it got to the wrong person and was destroyed, he had backups.
He had proof. Exactly.
He had all this stuff that this stuff was marked, and so even that guy was like, "Have you brought this to the church yet?" And he goes, "No, not yet. I'm waiting for the right time because I want to make sure I have all my ducks in a row and proof that this is here."
But then also, like, they wanted to kind of look into it and see that these were real.
Well, first, we forgot one major part, which led him, so this Mark Hoffman, which led the church to actually really kind of go with this guy. He actually found another piece of paper that was scribed by Joseph Smith, or he signed his name on it, and, basically saying that this paper is actually, he basically took a piece of paper over the golden plates and scribed it down.
Oh, that's right.
He wrote all the graphs, and he had a page.
Yeah, the symbols and stuff.
Yeah, all the symbols and
It was
everything.
just like one of those things you do as a kid where you'd put the piece of paper over something with a crayon
yeah,
and
you
you
just write it.
and you scrape to get the imprint.
Yeah, and he and there was a letter on the bottom that was signed by Joseph Smith saying this is actual scribes and symbols from the gold plates themselves, so on and so forth. And he actually presented that to the church, and the church was like, "Oh, wow, this is amazing."
Yeah.
Paid him for it, took the document.
And I mean, they tested these too.
Yeah, they tested
the
them.
document.
They made sure, and they actually
paper,
went back
old ink.
to Joseph Smith's time, all that stuff. They tested 100% accurate. And the church at that point, even, I actually have he's one of the radio hosts around here. I'm a fan of him on Facebook. He actually has one of the old Book of Mormon. So the church released a very special edition of the Book of Mormon with this paper gold printed on the front and back.
No way.
dang.
That's crazy.
Yeah, and
I didn't know that.
Yeah, like they it was like a limited edition. They just put out like so many copies. And
Who's the guy?
John Smith?
No. You said the radio host?
Yeah, John Smith.
Oh.
There's
You're
a lot
thinking
of
Joseph
Smiths.
Smith. It's not
Yeah,
John
okay.
John
There's a lot of
Smith is a
Smiths.
different
John
guy.
Smith
Okay.
used to work for X96. He's now with
Married Pocahontas.
Arrow
I was about
World.
to say, isn't he the one
I
that?
was so lost. I was like,
That's literally his name is John
dude.
Smith.
Okay.
But
Voiced
yeah.
by Mel Gibson?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That was shut up.
But so we forgot that part, which actually set him up with the church. I mean, it gave
him good favor with the church.
Yeah, so when he'd grown up his life, LDS, was
Eagle
really
Scout.
strong standing in the church, all that stuff, and he had found. I can't remember how he came across this paper, with.
I want to say it was just in one of his. He was out and he would go to old
Yeah,
bookstores.
I think
like
he
old
just
secondhand
came across
bookstores.
it and found it.
He did it in his college years, right? As almost like a hobby. He would go to the libraries.
Oh
Yeah.
wait, no, I remember now. I remember he was on his mission in England.
Right.
Oh, that's right.
He was on his mission.
Yes.
So in the LDS church, men, boys,
And
I
women.
mean,
They're men.
we're in a weird age range there. 19-year-old boys, or at
Young
our
men.
time, 19-year-old men and 21-year-old women had a chance to serve a mission. Essentially, we spent 2 years somewhere
that
else
time I think it was 18 months.
for women. Oh, I'm talking
men.
about. Oh, sorry, I was thinking about us.
Yeah, no.
Yes.
This is 1985. They'd spend about 18, or not even 1985. This was way before then.
True.
Anyways,
so throughout the
I'm
church, we have missionaries. We send out missionaries. If you have any connection to the LDS Church outside of Utah, it's probably through missionaries.
Yes.
So we send these young men and young women out to proselyte and share the gospel and whatnot. Me and Zach actually both served missions. I was 2 years in Argentina. He was 2 years in
Rochester, New York.
Rochester.
Actually, Palmyra. I was.
Oh, you were right there.
I was.
Dude,
I
that's
actually-
a holy land.
I actually got to go to the Sacred Grove where Joseph Smith grew up. I actually got to go to the Hill Cumorah, which is where Joseph Smith found
Book
the
of Mormon.
plates. And
That's
everything.
crazy.
Wow.
Like I feel like a terrible friend because I never knew
Isn't that wild, dude?
that you
Like-
went on. I didn't even know you went on a mission.
Uh-huh.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
Well, see, we didn't know him until long after that.
Yeah,
You
but-
knew.
but
you were
still.
sending me stuff while I was on my mission. It was great.
I know, but I mean, I feel like it's such a common conversation because we talk about your mission all the time.
It's a big part of your life. Like when you serve. Like I honestly learned more in that 2 years than I would have ever learned in like 5-6 years here. Like seriously, you learn so much so fast, and it was an incredible experience. Absolutely loved it. But anyways,
it's the best 2 years and the worst 2 years of
the
your life.
best and the worst.
Can you guys elaborate a little bit on what you guys do as missionaries?
Yeah. So like we
Knock on
had
doors,
some decent.
proselyte.
Yeah, we had some pretty. I wouldn't say strict, but like we were definitely scheduled out constantly
Your whole days are planned, like
yep.
Monday through Sunday.
by us. Like we would plan them.
Yes.
But we had a certain schedule to meet. Like we had to be in bed by 10:30. We had to get up by 6:30. And then from 6:30 to like 10, we were studying.
Yeah. You
So
would
I was
shower,
studying a
breakfast,
language.
study, companion study, because you're with another elder as well.
There's always two of you. You're
yes.
never alone that whole 2 years.
Yep. You are never allowed to be alone the whole 2 years.
Even
unless
when you
you're
shower?
showering.
No, it's just in the bathroom.
I was just curious.
bathroom. But
Hold my hand through the door.
but we would go out and literally
This is going to be a tough one. I might squeeze.
Pinky touch.
oh
Pinky touch.
gosh. We would go out though and walk the streets and knock on doors, or in my case, clap at doors. That's what you do in Argentina. You stand at the end of the street and you clap real loud.
I rang doorbells.
Yep. Not many of those worked. They might have been there, but they didn't really work in Argentina. But
Throw a chicken through the window.
yeah, or a dog. There's stray dogs everywhere. Yeah, we would just walk around and talk to people, and we literally just walk up and say, "Hey, I have a message from Jesus Christ. I want to share His gospel with you. Would you like to listen?" And we would, enter people's houses and talk to them about it. Share our
And
thoughts,
it's-
our testimonies, all that stuff.
It's funny and sad at the same time how many amazing people you will meet and how many rude, very rude people that you will meet. Like the moment you mention any religion, like they don't care whether you're a human being or not. You are the worst person in the entire world.
Oh, it's scary. Like the opposition is scary.
It gets bad.
That is
like
crazy.
there was one time. So funny story, real quick. I'm out there. Me and my companion decided to walk up and down Main Street of Wellsville, New York, which was actually at the very border of New York, Pennsylvania. We're walking. We decided to walk one way up Main Street and then turn around and go back down the other side. Well, at the other side at the very end was a bar, and they had an outside area where you could kind of just drink and stuff like that. Well, they were celebrating someone's 21st birthday, and we're trying to just mind our own business. We walk past, and they're like, "Hey, you're the Mormons, right?" And we're like, "Yeah." And they're like, so they start talking to us. They were actually a really, really cool group, and so we're sat there and talked to them for about 10 minutes, and one of the guys goes, "So, you guys ever seen a pair of boobs before?" And I was like,
Of course.
oh, geez. I was like, my companion's like, "No, I haven't." And I was like, "I've seen a few rated R movies. They popped up here and there." I said, "But no, I haven't in real life.
Never
I
in the
haven't.
flesh.
I was
3D.
like, I've not seen him in real life. Don't go searching for him and stuff like that." And he goes, "Oh," looks over at wife and goes, show him. So she just, bam, just lifts up her shirt.
Well, you're just the jewel of the earth, aren't you?
Me and my companion are like, whoa, we gotta go.
We gotta go repent.
See, that's when you should have responded when he asked you that. Be like, sir, I'm sorry, I don't want to see your boobs.
That's where I thought this was going. Have you ever seen a pair of boobs? Woo! Sir, I'm sure they're really nice, but I'd rather not.
I'd rather not. Thank you. I was kind of that sassy missionary every once in a while.
It's just like I said, being an LDS missionary, it's just funny. Like, who's gonna sit there and flash someone randomly on the street? But also, well, it's just funny the stuff that you will see on your mission and go through.
It's a wild time.
And I'm sure it happens for other missionaries as well. I don't know very much missionary work outside of the LDS church, but I'm sure it happens.
You know, that is
Just as
one
much
thing
to
that's one thing that is cool though, is that even in New York or anywhere almost, people recognize a Mormon missionary.
It's true.
A white shirt,
That white
tie,
shirt
that
with that-
black tag.
Yep.
With the biker helmet.
Yep.
In some areas.
Until you crash the bike, and then all of a sudden, nobody in the mission gets bikes.
Well, there's a story there.
I mean, I'm just saying, if you look up missionary bike crash on YouTube, and you find one where it's like kind of a side view, and there's a bunch of really poor-looking houses and dirt. It's a video of me on my mission.
Pretty sweet dirt jump.
Crashing hardcore.
Are you kidding me?
Oh, I ate it, but I did not get hurt. God protects his missionaries. And
Even the dumb ones.
I hit hard and nothing. No scratch, nothing. It was wild.
It's a beautiful jump. He
I mean,
almost made it.
I did. I'm not saying that's the reason, but shortly after that, there were no more bikes in the entire mission.
Way to ruin it.
I do have to say, it sounds really epic, but the jump isn't very big. It sounds like it's like this gigantic
You guys weren't there.
ramp.
The cameras were old. The perspective was not right.
That jump was at least 20 feet.
And I was pedaling hard, okay? I was too high of a gear.
It's that classic pedal too, where like the bike shifts side to side as you're standing up. You know,
It's like it leans.
yeah, that's
you know?
what I mean.
And you're pushing so hard.
he doesn't pull up on the handlebars. He pushes down.
I did not push down. I just gravity helped.
I don't know if the bike ever actually left the ground, did it?
Kind of. I'm just saying it was
Before you rolled, I don't think it left the ground.
it was pretty miraculous though how quickly it reversed course. Let's just be honest. Because that front wheel just whoop,
Yeah.
it's like nope.
I thought you were windowing. Yeah, I thought
Like
oh,
you, no,
it's a cool
for real.
trick.
You watch it, and it's not that the back end comes up; it's that the front goes back.
That's why I said you pushed on the handlebars. You had to have.
Yeah. I don't think you've ever jumped a bike in your life until that moment.
Hey, I think I might have been
tried
going
jumping
slightly
at 10
uphill
speed.
too. Yeah, okay, that bike
hilarious.
broke every day anyway, so it wasn't that greatest. Anywho, so
Little
that
fun
is essentially
sidebar.
a mission. We could elaborate if you guys want us to talk more about it.
Yes.
We have. I'm sure me and Zach have a ton of stories to share with
yes.
you.
Check
I
us out on
almost died. It was scary.
Instagram. Ask questions.
It's a good time.
Fill it in.
But anyways, now you know what a mission is. So Mark Hoffman is on his mission. He was in England, and he found in some old bookstores that he would go into, he found documents of the rubbings, the rubbings of the plates from Joseph Smith, and he brought those home with him, and that's kind of what got him started in this this antiques dealing arena and got him to where he is now. So, anyways, he takes this salamander letter to a Mormon bishop, so it's someone who's kind of in charge of the congregation in the area, and he shows it to him. Well, this guy, his name is Steve Christensen. He ends up buying these salamander letters from him for $40,000.
I remind you as
bishop
well.
did?
Well,
bishop
remind
did.
you as well. He was also a wasn't he an attorney as well?
He was.
Okay.
So he was like a letter. So he actually bought this. He did it on his working time, like not as an official part of the church.
Yes.
But then he bought it and then he donated it to the church.
Yes. Which then put him in ties with the church as well to kind of be a
A way for to get more documents.
almost a not authoritative figure, but a working waypoint for the church to get documents as well.
And a really awesome way as a business write-off.
For real.
I mean, hey, his business is his business.
Hey.
It's not the,
$40,000
he doesn't work for the
business
church.
write-off.
He doesn't work for the church.
Exactly. He donates that as $40,000. It's a great write-off.
I mean, yeah. As a side note, all clergy of the Mormon Church, none of them are paid. It's all volunteer. No one
volunteer.
gets paid anything. And so this was all his own private business dealings, but he donated it to the church. So, you know, the church has this document. The news is going crazy. There's articles all over talking about how the Mormon Church is a lie. They lied about their origins. Like, it's ground shaking for anyone of that faith. I remember right after this series came out, I had not known anything about this. Like, I did not know about the bombings.
I didn't know.
I did not
either.
know about the salamander letters. But at that time, my dad's a convert to the church, so he didn't get baptized until like right before my brother was born. So like early 80s. And so this was like, you know, this was a big thing happening in the church.
There's a lot of people who left the church because of it.
A lot.
It shook their faith. It shook, you know, they.
Well, how could it not?
I know.
You know
for
what I
sure.
mean? That's like finding out that Jesus really didn't do anything that he did, or
Yeah.
He didn't walk on water.
Yeah.
He didn't, you know.
Yeah.
well, you're thinking, well, if they lied to us about this, what else did they lie to us about?
Exactly.
That type of
So it was huge controversy. It was a lot of stuff was going on. Well, then, a little bit later, Mark Hoffman comes across more documents, and these were called the McClellan collection.
Yes.
So this
Yeah,
was
he claimed he had a way to them. So these were this was working in with the guy in
New York,
in
right?
New York, yes. And he had basically claimed to this guy, hey, I've got these McClellan papers, which describe what they are.
as far as I understand. I don't know the guy's first name, but this McClellan guy, William E. McClellan. So he was a Mormon leader, and he basically had this collection of documents and books and stuff that further kind of basically like destroyed the church. Like, it was more documents similar to the White Salamander letter that threw controversy, that threw stories out of whack, that basically like made all these previous stories that we knew in the history of the church into a totally different, like, avenue,
have
completely different thing.
Didn't it have to have something to do with Joseph Smith's wife or something?
No, so she got brought up because they found out that Bible that had the salamander letter in it was actually owned by her.
That's right.
Oh,
So
And that's the other reason it was so important.
The guy who he bought the Bible off of said
That's
that
right.
this was owned by Emma Smith herself.
Didn't it
Or her
supposedly
family or
have part
something.
of the 116 pages that were lost too?
Yes.
Well,
Or is that something
no,
else?
that comes later.
Oh, okay.
That comes later.
But I thought the Joseph Smith's brother part was in the McClellan. Or
No,
was
that was in the salamander.
that was in the
salamander
Salamander?
letters.
Okay.
And so, but basically, so with these McClellan papers, they are these huge papers. They, were rumored about all this stuff. He goes to New York.
I don't think he actually ever said what was in them. He just said that they could be damaging to the church.
Yeah,
Yes.
they were huge papers. And so he goes to New York. I can't remember the guy's name, but he talks to this guy in New York, and he basically says, hey,
The coin collector?
yes. And he says, I have an opportunity to get these papers, and describes to this guy what it is. And he says, but I don't have the money. It's going to cost him, what did he say? It's going to cost him 300,000?
No, it's like 180,000.
Yeah. And so this coin collector guy fronts him half the money.
What was his name again? Do we remember?
I don't remember his name.
It's so hard remembering all the names
I
of all
know,
these.
because there were a
different
lot.
people.
Yeah.
It's a big tangled web.
Yeah, basically though, this guy, like, he was huge into coin collecting, and he had a whole business completely around just collecting and trading coins and other small antiques, but mostly coins. And so when he was approached by Hoffman, he was all aboard. He was like, yes, like, because Hoffman's like, hey, help me buy these documents. They're like 180,000. Once we get them, I already have a buyer at the church, the LDS church,
Well,
who will pay 300,000 for them.
he partnered with another guy as well and offered him half. And this guy
Yeah.
was like, wait, half? I was thinking like maybe 10%,
Yeah.
20%, but okay, half.
Not even that.
Great.
I think he was saying like 2%,
yeah,
3%.
2%, 3%, but he's like half. Okay, great.
that
So-
was very generous.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then
By Sorry, by this time, didn't he already sell the salamander?
Yes,
Yes, he
it had
gave-
already
yes.
been bought and donated to the church.
Yeah.
So he found more documents.
Right.
And he was in conversations with Steve Christensen
which he
to go see them. Steve wanted to go with him to New York to look at the
Yes.
documents.
Which in turn, Steve Christensen also went to the church about it and said, hey, he's got these papers. So Gordon B. Hinckley, who at the time was the second counselor in the first presidency, actually came out and put an offer on these papers saying, we want them, offered $3 million for these papers.
I don't. Are
what-
you sure about that? Because I remember them denying that they were ever going to buy it.
Well, that comes later. So
So
at this point, it's led to believe that the church made an offer
Yes.
to buy it.
Okay. Oh,
Yeah.
that's right. So
And then
like he didn't come out and say it in a news thing.
right.
They were saying that he
They
was
were
wanted to
saying-
buy it for
they
$3
were
that's what it
saying-
was. That's my apologies.
Yeah.
I said that kind of differently. So
Yeah, like he
he
didn't
was
say it directly.
claiming to the coin collector in New York, and also that he's talked to this one, and the church
Mm-hmm.
wants $3 million for these papers and all this stuff.
But then it
But-
does come out that the leaders of the church were told that it was going to be donated, that they never actually made an
never
offer.
had intention. So as you see, like things are starting to kind of unravel, right? Everyone's starting to question things. You know, he went to this guy. I'll give me this much. I'll get this much for it. Hey, you will actually going to pay, sell it to the church. They're going to give us $3 million. I'll split it halfway with you. All this stuff's going on. Well, Steve Christensen is like, hey, the church is really eager to get their hands on this stuff. Let's go to New York. Let's go look at it. Let's, get this going. Well, the day that they were supposed to leave to New York to pick up, to look at the McClellan letters and everything, Steve Christensen is in his office. He gets a knock on the door. There's a package on the, outside waiting for him. He goes out. He picks up the package. Immediately, that package explodes and kills him.
Well,
Like,
it was
just
a
homemade bomb box. Just kills him right then and there.
This homemade bomb was wrapped in nails, so like it shot shrapnel everywhere.
It was
Blew
like
the
a
door off.
giant pipe bomb, really.
Yeah. So he died instantly. And this just rocked the world. Amidst the controversy of the salamander letter and all this stuff, now we have a straight up bombing in the middle of Salt Lake.
Well, and to add on to it, with all this uncertainty and then the words going around of the church willing to pay $3 million for these documents, it sounded a lot like hush money.
Yeah.
Like, hey, under the table, we're gonna drop you $3 million, and then on the surface, they're like, no, we're not gonna give you any money, or we didn't offer any money. And so there was like almost like under the table hush money, like give us the documents, and no one knew at that time what they were going to do with them if they had received them.
Exactly. So everything gets just more shady, essentially. Like, what's going on? What are these documents? Is the church behind things? So it's casting doubt and suspicion on everything. Well, the very next morning, Steve Christensen's partner, it was Steve Christensen's partner's wife, finds a similar box on her doorstep, picks it up, it blows up, she dies. Essentially, that box was intended for Steve Christensen's partner. I can't remember his name.
That's what I was trying to look up.
I want to say it was like Carrie or something like that. But so now we have two bombs that have gone off within a day of each other, and all of Salt Lake, the whole state's freaked out because one bomb is disgruntled person. Two bombs is serial killer. Everyone's thinking serial killer. Somebody is out, like people are in danger. Things are going on. There were quite a few other people involved in the antiques dealing that they were starting to get really scared because they knew about these things. They knew about the salamander letters, the McClellan documents, all this stuff.
And the entire time that this is going on, as I'm watching, learning about this, I'm like, this is insanity. It sounds like the cartel is at war with
Straight up.
And it's just, no, it's this.
Well, some
religion.
people were even wondering, is it the church themselves that these secrets are starting to get out and the church doesn't want this out. So is it a conspiracy with the church?
Exactly. And I mean, I'm sure conspiracies were abound. Like, what is going on? What is
So-
it that they had their hands on?
To add to that, I just was reading on this, the McClellan papers, it actually tells it what it is. So this adds even more to the whole conspiracy thing of, could it be the church? Could it be someone within the church? Could it be just an everyday person who's trying to protect the church? But the McClellan papers was, so William E. McClellan was actually a Mormon apostle who eventually broke with the LDS Church. It was known that McClellan had written various letters and papers dealing with controversial subjects in Joseph Smith's life. Basically, he printed a letter to Joseph Smith III, Joseph Smith's son, stating that Emma Smith knew and disapproved of Joseph Smith being an adulterer. And he said he was also visited by Joseph Smith III, stating Emma Smith told him that Joseph was both a polygamist and an adulterer. So it was basically a bunch of letters that he had written stating that he talked to Joseph Smith's son, that Joseph Smith was a false, that he was an adulterer, he was this and that.
Basically, would be detrimental.
Just
to
a
the church.
horrible human being, and he was basically a fascist, just out there to make money. So that's what the McClellan papers were. So now you've got these bombs that go off that, because the McClellan papers are starting to circulate and people are wondering what's going on, and you've got Steve Christensen who is dealing with it, and you've got this other guy who's
and his partner's
dealing with it, and
who was the intended victim, but it ended up killing his
these
wife.
guys are now trying to get the papers for the church so the church can look into it. And now you got bombings and people are thinking, man, is it the church?
Yeah.
Is it someone who is trying to protect the church in any way, shape, or form? Which now is shaking the foundation of everybody thinking as well. Like,
Well, and at this point, didn't they put Mark Hoffman under protective watch? Because they're like, if these two guys have been hit, we know that you've also been dealing with it as well.
They were looking for him.
Yeah.
It was another guy that they put under protective watch later because then, like, I can't remember if it was the next day or a couple days later, there was another explosion. Yeah. So 3 explosions within days of each other. This explosion,
it was Gary Sheets.
Gary Sheets.
Yes.
Yeah, he was the intended victim. It was his wife who died.
Kathy Sheets, who ended up dying.
And so then the third bomb goes off, and this bomb actually went off in Mark Hoffman's car.
Yep.
And Mark Hoffman was there. So
And he was in the car.
and he was injured, but he didn't die. So when the bomb goes off, though, and the police show up and all this stuff, they find in his trunk
Papers.
the McClellan documents.
Yes.
But they're too burned.
Yeah,
to
they're
be-
burned.
Exactly.
charred
They
that
were
you
burned
can't-
beyond, like they couldn't get anything from them. They could tell, though, they tested them. They're all like documents from that time period, all this stuff, but they couldn't see any of the information on it. So, he's in the hospital, and FBI is now brought into this. They're trying to help figure out where these bombings are coming from, who's doing it, is it a serial killer, and what is happening. And it's at that point that they grab the other guys that are kind of like
the coin collector.
Yeah,
like
was-
basically
they
just
go to
tell
all the
them,
other people and they're like, hey, like your life
Don't go anywhere.
is in danger.
Yeah.
They go to one of Mark Hoffman's friends, who was the one that took the first pictures of the salamander letters.
Was
and
it-
he actually became a suspect.
Yeah, wasn't he the one? I can't remember his name, but in the Netflix thing, he's the one that has kind of the really
Raspy
soft,
voice,
raspy
bald.
voice. Yeah, that's right. Because what was it about him that made him a suspect?
So you come to find out that like him and Mark Hoffman were friends for a while. They had gone out after Mark had sold some rare documents, specifically that really big one that he found. What was that? It was like the man of
Oh, the free man.
the free man.
Oh, what was it called?
It was essentially he found this document that was the very first printed paper in America.
Oh yeah.
What was it? Something Freeman. It was like Ode to the.
Oh, yeah.
Gosh, what was it called?
And this was like a huge deal. Like he was going to make millions on just that
The Oath of
document.
the
They were-
Freeman.
The Oath of the Freeman.
Yes,
it
and
is.
they were going to put it on display at the Statue of Liberty.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like they straight up did every test on this thing, proved it was real. They even sent it out for I can't remember the name of the test, but they bombard it with like protons
Yes.
and find out everything,
Carbon
checks
date
out.
it and all that.
Exactly. So they were sending that out. But anyways, all this goes down. That friend of his, apparently they had like gone out because Mark Hoffman was making a lot of money through his antique dealings. He went out with his wife, and he had a wife and 2 or 3 kids. I think
they were giving birth to their 3rd.
Okay, yeah. That sounds right. And so they went out, and he was coming into a lot of money. His wife noticed.
And this oath to the freeman was going to be his
huge, like
his retirement check.
Exactly.
Yeah.
The big payday. But even at this point, like his wife tells a story about how they went to buy a new van because their family was getting bigger. And he's like, I want a sports car. And so they ended up just buying a van and a sports car just right then and there.
And he was constantly taking people out to really nice dinners.
Really expensive dinners and stuff. And he was with this friend of his, he went out and bought an Uzi, like a full-on automatic Uzi.
That's right.
And would just go cruising and just shooting, dilapidated houses out in the middle of nowhere and like all this stuff. And so
I mean, why not?
Right?
I mean,
I'm not gonna lie. I'd be lying if I said I hadn't done that myself. But anyways, so things like that, and then his connection to the salamander letters and all that stuff made him seem very incriminated him as being the one who was using these bombs. Mm-hmm. And at this point, this is where everything truly starts to just completely unravel. Because they find out. I remember. So at the very beginning, he was actually dealing in early Mormon currency, which I didn't even know existed until this. So basically like beehive bills. Like he had these plates. He went to a company and he bought these plates, like had these plates made, and these documents were basically forged. They were printed and sold as actual historical documents. Once they realized that was the issue, it opened up this whole new world into the investigation. Wait. Now it wasn't even just about the fact that there was controversial documents. Now it was questioning whether or not some of these documents that had been proven real were in fact actually real.
Wait, back up. So Mark had these plates?
He had sold the currency. He found this so-called like old Mormon currency.
Uh-huh.
And he was dealing with it, and somehow in their investigation they came across a receipt from this different guy. What was his name?
It's like Mike something.
Dude, names,
right?
I suck with names so bad.
Mike Wazowski.
It was Mike. Yeah, it was Mike something. This Mike guy had bought these plates.
Mike Harris. No,
I think you might be Mike Harris.
Is it? I want to say it was something like that.
There's a Martin Harris, but that's not who you guys are talking about.
But it was. I don't know.
Yeah, it was a name, Mike something, and this guy had he had gone to this like trophy shop, had them make these plates that were used to forge this money. So they realized that these documents that the church had been given were fake. So now they started to look into this guy and try to figure things out and like, well, what's going on? Like, could this be an issue of forgeries? Could someone be covering something up? Well, as they're investigating this Mike guy, they go to the actual like place where the document was made. And this like trophy shop. And they find that this Mike guy had made another purchase for another plate, and the guy had paid with he paid with like cash, but he was a couple dollars short.
That's
so he had
right.
to use a check.
And he had to write a check. Well, guess whose name was on the check? Mark Hoffman.
Mm-hmm.
See, and
It's
backing
either
up
a check
just
or a credit card.
It was a check.
Was it a check?
It was a
Personal
check.
check.
And backing up just a tiny bit before this all landed, there was suspicion because there was an eyewitness of the Steve bomb.
Yes.
And the eyewitness saw the guy he just said, he's your average male,
Average dude.
but he was in a green
Letterman's jacket.
without the letter. So
And he was carrying a brown package.
and he was carrying a brown
up to Sean
package.
Christensen's door.
And when they released that information, I can't remember who it was, but they were like, the only person I could think of who had a jacket like that was Mark.
It was friends of him. And Mark Hoffman had gone to Olympus High School, and that was their colors. That was their Letterman's jacket.
So they checked out his house, didn't find anything at all resembling bombs, forgeries, nothing, but they did find the green jacket.
Exactly. And I mean, at first they were worried, like, hey, it's, anyone who had gone to Olympus could have this jacket.
Right.
It could be a pure coincidence. They could not find anything on him. And that's when they found the plates that took him to the trophy shop. They found the personal check.
Yes.
And they're like, well, we got him on this. Like, this is how we're going to take this guy down.
Didn't they even find a plate for the Oath of the Freeman as
Yes.
well?
Yeah.
Which
Exactly.
they used it and it came out perfectly, exactly.
So
as the other
everything
part.
starts coming apart. Mark Hoffman is an insanely good forger.
Yeah.
This man had fooled the FBI. The FBI had looked at all these documents, and they were like, this is all real. None of this is fake.
So kind of, again, back up just a tad. There was that one FBI who was a professional, looking over the forgery things, but he himself was LDS. So they said they didn't want him working on it.
Well, no,
because
no. So he wasn't with the FBI directly.
So what
he was a
happened-
professional,
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
Or,
what
like-
happened is now you've got Mark out as a forger.
he's the suspect now.
He's a suspect. They've got the salamander letters, and they actually went to the church and said, we need this paper, even though the church was like, we don't want to get it out. But finally the church was like, it was tested, all this stuff, but here you go, here, take it. You're once and for all, let's prove whether this is false or not. So they went and they found the best in the world, basically, forger guy or whatever, investigator who could tell on forgery. And he happened to actually, I can't remember where he's from, but he actually happened to be LDS himself. And he flat out said, I will do this. I have no problem doing this, but I need someone else in the room with me. Yeah. So he ended up calling another guy from Arizona, and he said, what's your religious background? And he goes, well, I used to practice, Christianity. He's like, but I don't really go anymore. And he was like, great. That's all I needed to know.
Perfect.
He goes, as long as you're not LDS, Mormon, anything like that, that's all I care about. I need you up here. So the two of them, because he didn't want to have a biased opinion.
Yeah.
So the two of these
Or
guys
he didn't want his opinion to
look biased.
biased in the way.
Or feel like he's covering something up.
And this is what broke things out too, because then they start looking at the salamander letter.
And this is after the FBI had already said these are authentic.
Yeah, because they
100%.
had the FBI tested again, and the FBI came back again and said it's good. But these guys took a second look at it, and they looked at this paper for what? 15, 16 hours?
Well, see, and that's going back because I thought this guy looked at it, and then they said, well, you're LDS too, so we're going to have the FBI look at it. So they sent it to the FBI. They said it was authentic, and this guy said, I just feel like there's something,
it was something
wrong.
off, but he couldn't find it.
And so that's when he was like, I want to look at it one more time. And then he called the guy and said, I need someone else in here that's
And-
not.
And they spent hours, and they were just passing documents back and forth to each other over and over, and not just the White Salamander letters and the McClellan stuff they had, but just other historical documents from the church that
have been proven.
that Mark Hoffman never touched.
Yep. And what broke it was the cracked ink.
The cracked ink. He realized as he looked under a microscope, looked at all the different documents, they put them in different piles according to how the ink was cracked. And they realized quickly that all of the papers that had cracked ink in the specific way had all been touched by Mark Hoffman.
Yeah.
And the
And all the
salamander
other
letter
ones,
being
not at all.
one of
Salamander letter, all the McClellan stuff. And that is how they got him.
The McClellan stuff, I don't think they actually hung on to because it was too charred.
They had some stuff. Like in the video, you can see that there's still some visible parts of it. So I think they still checked things. But any documents that he touched, they found the same issue. And again, like this is another one of those crazy stories where if you ask anyone the guy knows, He was a stand-up guy. He was awesome. He was active in the church. He was so loving with his kids. He was filming his kids all the time. Like he had a camera at this time, which was in the 80s was kind of a big deal.
Looked like a gigantic news camera on your
shoulder. My grandpa
shoulder.
had one. They were crazy. Full on VHS stuck in those.
Oh yeah.
My grandma had one too.
But and like he loved the attention he was getting from the news. Like he just ate it up. He loved it. Well,
didn't his wife even say that like he would have the news on, and when they would talk about the white salamander and different things, you could almost just see that like smug grin on his face.
Exactly. Because you now that it's all out, you have this man who fooled everyone, almost the FBI, like all these other professionals looking into it. His oath of the free man passed that test with the protons. Like they put it in this giant machine and bombard it with protons, and it came back as
authentic.
And it's insane. It's so detail oriented to even go in topic on here. You have a chance. Go watch like the 3rd episode of this show on Netflix. And it goes into detail how he did this.
Oh man!
Like he confesses it. He explains it all, like how he did it, what he did, involving like literally putting the paper up and vacuuming the back of it.
That was the craziest one.
The ink through the paper, and
so when they talked about the ink, they were talking about how over time ink just it
seeps in.
Its acidicness or acidity, it seeps into the paper. So he devised his own way of writing with the ink, and then
he made his own ink too.
Yes, he created his own ink. He perfectly matched Martin Harris's handwriting. He wrote on this paper, which he took the paper from books of that time period, like cut pages out of the books
and would clear
took them with him. Well, he would find there's always like blank pages.
I thought he would also make his own paper. He would do it with like hydrogen peroxide and like he had his own chemicals that he would soak the paper.
Well, he would soak them, and then he would also positively charge them by running an electrical current
That's what it
to
was.
age them.
He put it in like a fish tank or something, right?
Oh yes, you are
Put
correct.
it in a fish tank, ran the electrical charge through it.
Dude, how do you even figure this crap out in a world without the frickin' internet?
the funny thing is they even asked they thought the wife was a suspect, and she just
knew
literally
nothing.
was oblivious to everything. She said, no, he had his office. When he went in there, we left him alone. And he'd just go in there and shut the door. And they were like, you never was curious to even anything in there. And she goes, no, it was my husband's private domain and I stayed away.
Yeah, but come to find out, he was forging all kinds, like not just centered around the LDS religion, like all kinds of historical documents.
Well, and that's the thing. This all starts back when he was 14 years old. He was at a camp or he was out with some friends and stuff. And he actually, like, they were like, hey, you know where treasure is? Let's go treasure hunting. And they're out looking for stuff and having fun. Well, lo and behold, he uncovers this jar full of old coins. And everyone's like, holy cow, how'd you do? No way. Like, oh my gosh, this is crazy. They get on the news. People come and check the coins. And they find the coins to be authentic old coins. He made the dang coins.
He made the coins,
forged them when he was 14.
Went out the night before,
buried them. Oh my gosh. And he says, like, once they found the coins and once the people said that they were authentic, he essentially said, if they say they're authentic, that means they're authentic.
That makes them authentic.
That makes them authentic. They are real. And he got this. I mean, you see this same kind of pride with serial killers. He was so proud that he could deceive people with this skill of his. It just gave him like a high, essentially.
Well, and kind of along that authentic, they rephrased it and basically said, once a lie is declared truth, it is no longer a lie.
And that seeing his lie become truth on television was insanely.
That was the epitome for him.
Yeah, it was just like perfection.
Not to mention, didn't he have almost a hatred for the church?
He did. So it turns out that in his confession, he also talked about how he became atheist when he was 14. So he stopped believing in God, and he essentially had gotten into groups that were They were against the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. They would deal with like documents and stuff written by other people. And this wasn't in the documentary, but I was talking to a friend about this. There's another video of an interview with his wife. He would bring over friends who were anti to the church, and they would collectively with him make fun of her for believing in Joseph Smith.
Oh,
really?
Yeah. So
like this was while they were married.
Wow.
Gosh.
So they would like he was against the church, but he was so against it that he not only wanted to try to make money from it, but he wanted to destroy it from the inside.
Well, and his he grew up in a household
Very
where
strict
his
family.
family
Very
was
strict.
extremely strict LDS.
Yeah.
To the point where if you said anything off about the religion, the father like lost it,
Yes.
right?
Yeah.
Yes. The dad was bad.
Yeah, he was definitely
so-
not.
I mean, not
The
necessarily
shining
the dad
beacon.
was bad, but the dad was very
It's
strict.
He took
bad.
it too far.
it's unfortunate because it's. I mean, you see this sometimes with people is they take the teachings to an extreme. Like
Yes.
they take the teaching of Jesus says, I cannot be, or God says,
this
I
still
cannot be in the
happens a lot
presence
today.
of anyone who sins. They take that as if you do anything bad, even in the slightest, you're the devil.
Yes.
yeah.
And they forget the very important part where Jesus is like, hey, love everyone, and love your neighbor, love me, and like be kind to everyone.
Judge
Like,
not lest you be judged.
exactly.
Yes.
Like they kind of skip over these very important pieces of the gospel.
And it still happens
and
today.
it does. And
Yeah.
they go,
It's
Ooh.
very sad.
very
It
unfortunate.
drives a lot of people away.
But yeah, so I mean, crazy time in
So-
the church.
So I gotta add on him with the bombs. They were interviewing him. This was after he was in prison. They were interviewing him about it, and didn't they? They ended up finding out that he had the plan for these bombs years in advance, and basically with the intent to one day use them. And I think they asked him, like, when did you know that you could kill somebody? And that's when he was like, well, I've had these bombs on hand for a while, blah, blah, blah. You never know. And so it's like the guy already had
Well,
like,
I thought
he
I thought he made the bombs that like the evening prior.
but he had the plans
Yeah, he
for
did.
it.
Plans.
Oh,
He'd
okay.
known about it. He'd read. Oh, that was the other thing that incriminated his friend is they both had anarchist cookbooks.
Oh yeah.
Right.
Oh,
Um,
like how to make homemade bombs.
exactly.
and-
Yeah. But
What dove him to the bombs too is he had said that he had gotten he had these plans for these McClellan papers, and he had gotten too deep too quickly.
Yeah.
he didn't
that-
have time to actually make
Steve
everything he needed to
Christensen
make.
kept bugging him for these papers. Hey, I want to buy them.
A lot of
Hey,
pressure.
I've talked to the church, and they're interested in them. And
That's right. Didn't the oath of a free man, he was hoping that deal would have gone through faster because then he would have made that paycheck and would have been gone
He would
before
have
the
pieced
McClellan.
out.
yes, before
Yep.
the McClellan papers could have been brought forward.
But that's when they essentially found the plate that made it, and they
Yeah.
duplicated it. And
well, and
Yeah.
that's
And
that's
that's
why
what
the bomb,
unraveled everything.
Yeah.
That's why the bomb went off in his car, because he was actually, I can't remember what he was saying. He was deciding whether he wanted to go set it off somewhere else.
Well, I think to set the bigger picture was he put himself in the middle of a very tangled web where
Yes.
he was kind of owing a lot of different people money.
Yeah.
And so
he had no way out.
So these guys were pressuring him for these papers that he didn't yet finish forging for
Yep.
that. And so he was banking on the oath of the free man in order to
pay off his
basically
debts and-
even out his debts.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so he was shifting around all these big amounts of money, basically laundering money to, buy himself more time as he then forged these documents.
Yep.
Yeah.
Now, did it say the bomb in the car? Did he purposely set it off to try and kill himself or to
Well-
make it look like he was attacked, or did it go off accidentally?
I don't remember it saying. I was confused on that too.
Yeah, well, and then going back to that night prior before the first bombing, and maybe I misheard. I thought the two bombings happened in the same day.
They did.
Was
Within
it the
hours.
same day?
Yes.
Oh, okay.
Yes.
Okay, so
Okay.
They
My
did
bad.
within
night-
hours of each other.
yeah, the night prior he was piecing together the bombs, and I remember in the interview he was like, "I didn't know who I was going to bomb. I decided that morning." And then that's where he dropped off the bomb at, was it Steve?
Steve Christensen's
Steve
first.
Christensen.
And that was
first.
intended
And
for
then-
him.
Yeah. And then the next
That was
one
at
at
his
Gary,
office.
Gary something
Sheets.
Sheets.
And he actually even said it was intended for Gary Sheets, but then he even mentioned that he didn't care who picked it up.
Yeah.
He's
He
like,
could
at
have
the
been
time,
an
it could have been a
innocent
kid,
kid.
dog, whoever. He's like, I don't care as long
And
as it went off.
He said on record, he was like, it's better to take a human life than risk being exposed.
Yeah. And so then as he was driving, trying to figure all this out, the one in the trunk of his car went off, which I think, if I remember right, was accidental. He was still
That's right.
trying
I do
to
remember something about it being accidental.
he was still trying to figure out who he was going to bomb as the
What a
third
perfect accident
I
to
was gonna
like
say,
cover
see,
your butt.
It worked out perfectly, yeah, because it
Yeah.
blew up those
a
papers and
while.
it made him look like he had the legit McClellan
That's right.
papers.
Because he went through, he kind of, excuse me for saying, he half-assed those McClellan papers and then burnt them.
You said a bad word.
Well, actually, was it accidental? I can't remember because
I thought
it could have
somewhere
been
in
on
the
purpose.
That's why I was confused, because I was wondering if it was on purpose to purposely burn the McClellan papers so it looked like he had them, but now they're too damaged. We can't really see what they are. Like,
Get off the hook on them.
yeah.
Yeah.
And
That's what I was thinking.
because I remember him being interviewed at one point too, where they were asking him, when did you make the choice to try and kill yourself? Didn't he get asked that in an interview?
yeah, he did. And I'm having a really hard time remembering if he admitted
So I
to
almost
that.
wonder if he did plan on dying, like if he was being suicidal in his car and then had the McClellan papers staged in the trunk, and then he would have died. They would have seen the McClellan papers. Oh my gosh, blah blah blah.
That would fit his profile because
I
of
think
the way he
that's
is.
right. I think he did try committing suicide. I think it was like an in the moment thing where he saw everything was falling apart,
Yes,
and then that's when he tried to kill himself.
and then
He's still in jail today.
Yeah.
It does.
did you see the timeline of his pictures?
Yeah.
Looks like a different guy in every single picture.
He was a freaking weirdo too.
I think he was.
Here's the best part about him being in prison, that he's still alive today. So he tried to commit suicide again inside his jail cell. Took a bunch of antidepressants. Well, he passed out. They didn't find him. Let's see. It said he was revived, but not before spending 12 hours lying on his right arm, and it blocked its circulation, thus causing muscular atrophy. Atrophy. Sorry, thank you. And
He got a trophy for that?
yes, and his forging hand was thereby permanently disabled.
Yeah.
So the
that's
irony.
right.
Oh, speaking about the forging. So, and I know we kind of touched on this earlier, but when you actually saw his little workspace, that dude was able to forge so many different
Didn't it say he did like Abraham Lincoln, Benjamin
George
Franklin,
Washington, I thought, was
George
one of them.
Washington.
And one of the big things was how many of his documents are part of U.S. history that are forged.
So that's the funny
Yeah.
thing is they don't know.
That's it. That's my
They,
point. Is
they don't know to this day. They don't know the documents that he turned in. They don't know whether it's forged or not.
Didn't they
begin?
say he
Yeah.
full on redid the Constitution?
I don't know.
I don't know.
Like I remember hearing something that he made a Constitution,
and-
made a replica of it.
Yeah, and a big piece to all this too is to remember this all took place back in 1985. Like
Again,
this
no
story,
internet.
the bombing happened in 1985. So his forging happened well before then. Started well before then.
Started when he was 14.
And so he
So-
perfected his
Craft.
his craft, and it's just mind-boggling.
It's crazy how much money's involved in forging.
Here you go.
seriously.
To give him an idea of how great this guy was, these are all the people who he forged in Americana history. George Washington, John Adams, John Quincy Adams, Daniel Boone, John Brown, Andrew Jackson, Mark Twain, Nathan Hale, John Hancock, Francis Scott Key, Abraham Lincoln, John Milton, Paul Revere, Miles Standish, and Button Gwinnett, whose signature was the rarest and therefore the most valuable of any signer of the Declaration of Independence.
Holy crap.
Isn't that wild?
He forged them all and he passed every single one of them.
Here's the thing that makes me so mad about all of this is clearly the dude is a genius.
Right?
Yeah.
He could have done the world so much good. But yet he chose a darker path, which is so disappointing.
The greed and the pride.
And do you think he regrets that in prison?
No.
Like,
Probably not.
So
I
this
doubt it.
kind of going back to our Ted Bundy episode we did, how we said Bundy was borderline genius with his IQ level. And I feel like in this case, I feel like he fits that profile. Granted, he didn't go nearly as dark as Bundy did, but mentally there's parallels.
but in a way, this almost more so parallels almost like a Hitler-esque type thing, where it's like he's not committing well, I guess he did do the bombings.
He did bomb, yeah.
But I mean, like, say the salamander letter went through. You're breaking the foundation of this gigantic religion. People, you never know what people are going to do in that state. Like everything that they've believed is now a lie.
You know, I hate to admit this, but when we were watching the episode and it started talking about the white salamander, Jenny and I started sitting there trying to still justify it. Like as if it were true, because by this time in the series, it didn't say it was...
The first episode definitely makes the church look bad.
Yes.
It does.
Yes, it does. Before it comes out and says that it was all forgery and everything, it's starting to set it up that these are legit documents. And I'm just sitting back going, no.
No. I mean,
and then it's like, okay, if this is true, then what could be the explanation here? Like,
here's the hard part about it too. I was reading up on this and I found this very interesting. And being a member of the church would be so hard to hear because it was actually given by Dallin H. Oaks, who was an apostle of the church. And it'd be so hard to hear this, and then all of a sudden you find out it's false, and it's like, well, wait a minute, he said this and this. So Dallin H. Oaks actually said to Mormon educators that the words white salamander could be reconciled with Smith's Angel Moroni because in the 1820s, the word salamander might also refer to a mythical being thought to be able to live in fire. And a being that is able to live in fire is a good approximation of the description Joseph Smith gave of the angel Moroni. So right then and there, you've got Dallin H. Oaks, who is trying to interpret this to his best knowledge of still being Angel Moroni, who Angel Moroni was the original, the angel who came and showed Joseph Smith the plates. So now he's trying to interpret this white salamander letter. Wow. So you got people who are hearing this, and then it comes out it's false, and it's like, well, wait a minute. You tried interpreting it like you guys even believed it. Now you're saying it's false. What is going on?
Yeah.
And so that's...
Wait, hang on. A salamander can live in fire?
A white salamander.
A mythical one.
Mythical. Very mythical.
I mean, when you throw mythical in front of anything, it can definitely withstand
it
fire.
happened somehow.
That explains Frozen too.
But
Right?
The little fire god is a salamander.
even why I was watching this too. I got the same feeling too, listening over it. I'm like, holy crap. Like, cause I thought the salamander papers I didn't know at the time that it had actually been brought back as false. But the whole time I was watching, I kind of had the opposite feeling. I was like, no, this can't be true. Like none of this makes sense. Like I myself, like I was like, no, I don't believe it. I don't believe it. So if I was at that time, I would probably say that. I'd probably say I don't believe it. And if the church says, well, this is what we're doing, I'd be like, wait, no, I don't believe it. That's where I would struggle because I would have a hard time struggling with the fact that this is what I believe. This is what I prayed about. This is what I know to be true. Now you're telling me it's not. I don't believe it. Like I still believe this portion. Like, I don't know.
Now, I mean, what if it was true? Like what?
It would be detrimental.
Like just to be like silly
Devil's
conspiracy.
Well, I mean,
devil's, yeah. I mean, for a worser term, it's like, but what if there's a bigger conspiracy? What if Mark Hoffman really is dead and they found a duplicate and paid him off and now he's, like, what if, you know what I mean? I'm just like,
We'll find out when we die, okay?
No, I mean it's definitely a trial of faith. Like all of it was.
I was about to say the same thing. That's the one biggest thing about the Mormon church, the LDS church, is our center of reflection is faith. And it's all a
that's
matter.
any religion.
Yeah,
Yes.
all religion
yes.
is faith based.
But with us, it's you have to have faith that what you're being taught is true. You have to have faith that what you've prayed about is true. And
The feelings you've
the
gotten,
feelings that
the
you've
prayers
felt
that have been
and-
answered in your own life.
And so, and that's the hard part. And that's why I think at the time, with the Salamander letters, the church was so off-putting, and it not necessarily to be secretive about it, but off-putting is the fact that they were even like, this can't be true, but we don't want to put it public. Then finally they were like, great, let's put it out.
Well,
let's test it.
And this goes for any religion, right? No, I'm not just singling out LDS, but like the pure fact that they were looking to pay $3 million under the table.
Well, that's the thing is they weren't.
was
they
like-
weren't. That was
they
false.
weren't.
That was
Oh,
false.
that was all
false.
completely
Yes,
false.
that was
So
That
the church
was
was
Mark.
never going to pay for any of it.
no.
That was Mark trying to get those other buyers to get in on it.
Has that been confirmed though? That they just came out with a public statement saying we weren't
It's
going
been
to?
confirmed by the church that
Okay.
they
never
were under
had
the
any
impression- They were
intentions.
told that it was going to be donated.
Okay.
So basically, you have all these different parties having been told completely different things.
Stories.
And I think where it came from is I think you had Steve Christensen, who was an affiliate with the apostles in the
And
church.
was he an attorney?
Yes.
He was like a business attorney or something
Business
like that.
attorney,
So he
something.
had
I think he
knowledge
was
of the law.
willing to pay for it again, and then was going to donate from there. And I think that's where everything got misconstrued. And basically, the church, they came out and they said, no, we had no intentions of buying anything. Because it looked bad. Like it looks like you said, hey, here's $3 million. We're just gonna buy
man
this off
Gordon
of you,
B.
and we're gonna put it underneath the table, and we're gonna pretend none of this ever happened.
I mean, but to be a conspiracist, right? What do we know, like not know that's going on in certain religions? It's like,
Oh, for sure.
in everything.
Well, and
You're like,
unfortunately, I feel like the LDS religion, it's
we're very
it's new
secretive.
in the sense of, like, as we're taught the actual history of the church, it's not new. As Cam already went over at the beginning of this, it's a restored gospel. But in the eyes of people on the outside looking in, it looks brand
It's
new.
new,
It's
it's
only
young.
200 years old. And so,
well, and I mean, even
there's-
after all this time, you have people who still claim that we're not even Christians.
yeah.
Like that's the controversy. Like people are like, "Oh, you're Mormon. You're not Christian." It's like,
It's like you worship Mormon. It's like,
I
we-
believe in Christ. This is Christ Church.
Yes.
I am a Christian.
and it's hard as well too, because the Mormon church, the LDS church, is not necessarily a secretive religion, but at the same time, we do hold things very near and dear
Sacred.
to
Sacred.
Yeah, sacred. There we go. We hold a lot of things sacred to our hearts and to our religion, and it's not to be talked about in an open public. And same thing too, there's a lot of sacred documents that the church does have. That they actually, there's
The church has basically a hollowed out mountain.
they do
Full of documents.
Is it in Sardine Canyon?
Yeah, I think so. It's here in Utah.
In Little Cottonwood.
That's it.
Yeah, it's in Little Cottonwood. They basically have a hollowed out mountain. It's a vault full of all these documents that the
And
church owns. And
Primary reason is to protect them.
yes, it's to preserve them and protect them. A lot of people are very frustrated with the church because they won't release these documents. They think the church is hiding something, and in fact, it's just very sacred documents to the religion, and they're trying to preserve the sacredness of these
Well,
documents
it's kind of
as
like
well.
when you think of just historical documents in general, like they say that some of the ones they display in museums aren't even the real ones.
But
Because
you look at the Mona Lisa in the Louvre, and they switch it out with fakes all the time. You never actually know when the real one is on display,
right. And
or
so,
if it ever is on display.
and so that's just it. It's not a secret. It's preserving that history. And so
at the same time, though, it is kind of weird that it's not public. I don't know. As an outsider looking,
I understand what you're
even
saying.
being on the inside, I've looked at it and gone, why why can't we see some of this stuff? Like, why?
Yeah. And it's hard because honestly, at the end of the day, the only answer to all these questions is, do you have faith and believe the church is true, or do you not?
Yep.
Like,
And if you do believe it, then none of this else, it matters, but it really doesn't matter.
Yeah.
I've always
It's
said
all little tidbits in
looking at the big scheme of things, I believe in God. I believe in his son, Jesus Christ. I believe that my purpose on earth is to gain experience, to gain a body, and to return to God one day and to receive salvation. That's the big picture. So there's things on earth that I don't think are necessary for me to know to achieve that. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm. Definitely.
But the whole premise of the church is, if you believe the church is true, you believe that Christ restored his church on earth, which means he has continued to call prophets as he did in the Bible days. You know, all the Bible is written by prophets, people called of God, who spoke with God, who preached of God. We believe that continues today, and that's why the president of the church is the prophet of the church. He communicates with God. He gives us direction for modern times. So that's in that belief, we believe that we're consistently still receiving revelation from God as to how we need to be to achieve salvation with him again. And so even though, you know, the prophet's still a man, at the end of the day, he's still mortal.
Yes.
And we see it in the Bible, we see it in the Book of Mormon. They say, if there are mistakes in these texts, if there are mistakes in these teachings, it is the mortal part of me that is failing, not God.
You know, with that, it said that in the thing too. It's like, at one point, you've got the president of the church and his counselors looking at these documents. And it's like, if they are prophets, seers, and revelators, how come they didn't get revelation that these documents were fake? And that's it right there. It's like, Heavenly Father still gave us the right to choose.
It's still a big test.
Yes. And so even though these guys are basically, I would say, at the highest point of our religion that you can be, even they can still make mistakes. And
which brings up Hoffman's other thing that he wanted to do. He wanted to try to rewrite the 117 lost pages. 16, sorry, thank you. 116 lost pages of the Book of Mormon. And it's the same thing. These pages were actually lost. They were transcribed by Joseph Smith and Martin Harris.
Yep.
And Martin Harris wanted to show them to somebody.
To go full circle, just so I'm following along with everyone else. The 116 pages are what was known as the McClellan pages.
No. These were separate. These were separate
story.
pages that they're actually known to be called the Book of Lehi in the Book of Mormon. So it starts off the Book of Nephi, goes off into these other prophets.
And Lehi is Nephi's dad, his father.
And so there's these 116 pages that are believed to be transcribing of Lehi's time and journeys. And it's basically the Book of Lehi.
And essentially his point of view.
Yes.
Because his son was writing at the same time.
Yes.
And so it's their different points of view. Well, Joseph Smith translated it. Martin Harris writes it down for him. Martin Harris is getting hounded by his wife, hounded by friends.
Wants to see
like,
him.
we want to see this. Show us. Like everyone know, like people in the community know about this and they're like, prove it. We want to see it. So Martin Harris goes to Joseph Smith and he's like, hey, can I take these pages and just show my family? And that's it. Joseph Smith goes to God. He prays. God says, no, you can't take those. Just continue with your work. Tells Martin Harris. Martin Harris is like, please just ask him again. Joseph Smith goes back, asks. God's like, no, just continue with your work. Don't ask me again. Goes back to Martin Harris. Martin Harris is like, come on, I'm begging you. Joseph Smith goes back. And at this point, God's like, fine. Like, let him take him and, show his wife. He takes the 116 pages and somehow in the time he takes them, shows his family and whatnot, he loses them. All of them. Okay. Well, God's real mad at Joseph. He chastises him and gets mad at him for being disobedient. And basically it was a whole lesson. But one of the miracles that we believe in our church is that Nephi knew, so 600 BC, Nephi knew that he needed to write the same exact things his father was writing, but he didn't know why. He was told, God was like, I need you to write these things too. And he had no idea why. And he puts that in the Book of Mormon. Well, come to find out, the 116 pages are lost, those teachings are still preserved because Nephi wrote about them also. So God knew in his infinite wisdom that this was going to happen. These documents would be lost. It would fall into the hands of bad people who want to destroy the church, who would alter them, hoping that Joseph would retranslate them. And they'd be like, well, look at this. They're different. Why are they not the same? And so for Mark Hoffman to come up with the 116 pages, like, that would be like the holy grail of the LDS church.
Like, holy
look what
crap.
I found.
Yeah.
And that would just mess things up.
Yeah. And that even goes to serve purpose as people are questioning, the prophet. Like, you're a seer and revelator. Like, why did you not see this coming? And it just goes down to the fact that we're mere mortals, and some of the times we have to learn our own lessons.
And even the guys on top,
we have to make
tested.
our own decisions, and we have to be tested in our own way. And that's my way of looking at this, going, why did they not see this? They should have known. They had to be tested as well.
And again, at the end of the day, it's not the men that we go to get confirmation of the church's truth. Even whenever the prophet comes out with any revelation, something that's new, something that changes in our church, it's on us as members to pray about it. It's to go to God himself and ask and to receive those impressions and that revelation that things are true. And so honestly, I see things like this as a big test on the members of the church to truly see how faithful they are. Because that's something that we constantly undergo, is tests of faith to see if we're still faithful to the church.
And I think that's in any church, really, any religion, anything you think about.
Well, God in general, like we believe the whole reason we're here is to be tested, to show that we believe in him, even though we can't see him.
I've always teased that arguing about religion or anything like that has to be the dumbest argument out there, because in the end, it's all faith. And at the end, when you die, if you're right and there is a heaven and hell or whatever it may be, you're not going to be like, ha, told you.
I got you.
I will definitely be that guy.
I know.
Got him.
No, I believe it was the Mormons. Yes, the Mormons was the correct answer. But, oh man, at the end of the day, wild. The dude was wild. Like, to have that crazy skill. Again, like, I feel similarities. Oh my gosh. The power of Christ compel you.
That scared the crap out of me.
No.
Oh, okay. The way you acted, I was like,
Hurry, somebody get out of him. Get out of him.
sorry.
I need an old priest and a young priest.
Oh my goodness. But again, I think there's just some weird similarities between like him and like serial killers and people like that.
I really
They have
think he
some
had that.
consistencies.
I mean, luckily he used his craziness, if you want to call it that, towards forgery and not towards killing people.
I mean, he
Other
killed
than
Till
those,
the end.
yeah, until the
killed
end.
two.
Yeah.
But
I mean, how crazy, like how different would today be if those letters actually stayed? Like, that'd be so crazy.
Yeah,
It's weird.
it's wild.
It is wild.
it's frustrating too. I mean, on the non-religious side of it, I want to see old historical documents come up and
Oh yeah.
come into the spotlight. Like, that'd be so cool.
Well, and I mean, like, think of this. I've always wanted to see some of this. So, we believe in the 12 tribes of Israel, which, and that's not even just a Mormon thing. That's something that a lot of religions believe in. There were 12 tribes of Israel during the time of Abraham and all that stuff. Well, we believe that each tribe had to have kept a record. So essentially, the Bible is a record of Judah and that tribal line, basically. And then we believe the Book of Mormon is another record of Joseph's, like ancient Joseph's line, not Joseph Smith, ancient Joseph.
Yes.
But,
Colored coat, Joseph.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, I mean, you got to think that
I know
potentially
things.
means
I know things.
Chris contributed, everybody.
I've been quiet this whole time because I'm learning things.
This has been educational for us too.
But,
I'm learning.
But I mean, that's something I've always wanted to see in my time, is just more like documents of ancient civilizations come out that essentially just do the same thing in preaching that God or Christ is the ultimate redeemer of all humanity.
Mm-hmm. I do have to say, I did find it extremely odd as I was watching this special that like it was just him that was stumbling across these things. I'm
Right.
like, man,
Right?
this is so
I thought
weird.
Consistently.
Oh, look what I found.
Oh, look, guys, look how lucky I am.
Oh, one thing that we forgot to delve into, and it's just to add to his genius, was a lot like the burying of the coins the night before. He also planted that salamander letter in
that's
between
right.
the
For
two
his wife to find.
for his wife to find. Like he preemptively thought of the entire timeline on how things would go and play out
Yeah, that's
well
right.
before it would go. Like that's how genius this guy was.
Yeah,
well-
he made the letter,
Or manipulative.
put it in between the paper, glued it slightly, just enough so it was sticky, and then placed that Bible on the kitchen
Look
table.
what I found, honey. Take a look.
Yeah, look what I bought.
Go
at a
ahead and
swap
scroll
meet.
to page 370. That's an interesting one.
Well, and then he obviously acted like it was new information.
Yeah.
Had the guy come out, take photographs, like was very like to him that was truth at that point. Like
Yeah.
And he was such a goober, though. Can we talk about that?
yeah,
Like, he was such a goober.
with an Uzi.
Yes. But like,
with an Uzi.
he had the derpy looking frames, and like his voice was so weird.
when it first played,
I always thought it was a woman.
me too. That's what I was about to say. When it first played his interview, that it was just audio from the prison, I thought it was a woman, and I was like, okay, when does the woman
this?
come into this? I thought it was Mark. Like,
No, same. He was just such a weird dude. But I mean, also thinking about like his poor wife.
Yeah.
Like she was in the videos and she did some interviews, but like you never really.
She's also a big ditz.
She
I
was-
mean, think about
yeah.
it, dude. To have a room in your house that you're not allowed to go into, like very Beauty and the Beast-esque. It's like,
Don't go into
red
the
flag
West
there.
Wing.
I think this also just shows 1980, 5 for what it is, the 1980s
Yeah.
in general.
Well, and
I mean, nowadays, yeah, most women are going to be like, you have a room for what?
so that's why I'm going first.
What's in this room?
I'm going through
You know?
everything. You stay out.
Yeah.
Well, not only so it's 1980 in Utah, very naive.
Yeah, very,
And I mean, I love the church. I'm active. I'm a big part of it. But man, the Mormons they put on that show were very goofy.
there was.
They were just
I
kind
feel
of
like
goobers too.
I feel like they put the ones on that the world sees.
they did. They for sure tried to find the gooberiest.
It's not
people
like
from
that.
the 80s.
But no, I was gonna say if this guy if he is as convincing in person as his forgeries are, he could literally convince you about anything.
Yeah.
And so to be his wife, I mean, who knows what lies he
Very
was telling her.
manipulative.
He could
Exactly.
Yeah,
be.
he manipulated her.
And like, I mean, he played the perfect husband. Like all the videos you see of him with his kids, you're like, oh, what a great relationship he has. He plays with them. He's on the ground with them, giving them piggybacks, whatever. Like,
Well, but he also lived a double life. I mean, obviously,
Yeah.
but it's something we didn't touch on was his party life, where he would go
Yeah.
and travel and he would drink and party and
that's
go
right. I
crazy
forgot about
and
that.
spend all this money and then come back and pretend like,
he would sober up immediately, though. He would go and puke it all up.
yeah,
Yeah, didn't he? So he claimed it was his first time
he-
drinking or
and he
whatever.
couldn't get drunk.
And he was like, yeah, and I can't get drunk. And he drank shot after shot after shot. And he was,
And they had him like walk around the table and do all this stuff, and he did it no problem. And then he went up to the room and puked it all out.
yeah, I'm as sober as a bird. Like,
Got him. But I mean, it just again, it goes to show like you never truly know with people.
And
sadly.
can we, before we end this, can we just talk about the one guy in the interview after the car explodes and they go and interview this guy?
I know which guy.
And he's just like, well, yeah, me being Mormon and I know he's Mormon, I decided to give him a blessing. Which, by the way, just because he was Mormon doesn't mean that's why he got the blessing. If you're not LDS, we can still come
Yes.
up and give you a blessing.
Yes.
But he made it sound like because he was Mormon, he got the blessing. And I went up to him and I laid my hands upon his head and I said, I command you to live. And even the reporter was like, you did what? And she's like, I command you to live. And she goes, you commanded it?
And he pulled out. He said he pulled out his anointing oil. Didn't
Yeah,
he?
yes.
And he's like,
That is a real thing.
That is a real
real
thing
thing
for the church to this
Yeah.
day. I mean, it's a real thing.
I got
we
it.
use
I got
for
it
the,
sitting behind my Christ statue. Actually, it sounds funny the way I say it now, but it's a really cool statue.
what really bothered me about it mostly was, number one, he portrayed it to believe that the only reason he could pull out the anointing oil and put it on him is because he was LDS himself.
Again, they find the weirdest ones.
And it's like, it's not just LDS to LDS. It's just, this is what we believe. Number two, it was the fact that he's like, I commanded him to live. Jesus was talking inside me and he said, I command you to live. And I'm like, oh man, like,
why'd you pick this guy?
wow.
Blessings can be that powerful.
They can be that powerful.
They can
but,
be.
yeah.
But it's true. The way
But they made it just look so goofy.
Yes.
Another thing I just have to throw out there, since we're on the topic of Mormons, we don't believe in polygamy.
No.
Happened a long time ago.
No.
We weren't involved.
It's over. Utah doesn't do that. Part of Utah does. We don't
But
talk
they're
about
not
them.
associated with us. They don't finish their houses for taxing purposes.
Go watch Sister Wives if you want to know about that.
I've been there. Heel Dell. It's a weird place.
Even though Sister Wives is not associated with them either.
They're in Arizona.
No, they're in Nevada.
Nevada.
You're right.
They're everywhere.
Well, I mean, come on.
Yeah. Well, I this whole topic was very unique for our podcast here. Before we even started podcasting, we came to an accumulative agreement that we would not bring
Talk
religion
about
or politics into this.
And we do apologize if this was super religious. This is who we are, and this is
it's a
our
part of us.
background. So you're getting to know us.
I feel like
I felt like we tried not to keep it as really religious as it could
Yeah,
have been.
and I think that's very interesting for those that are not. I thoroughly enjoyed this, and I think your guys' perspectives on it really brought a lot to the table. So yeah, that's why I wanted to have this conversation, and I'm really happy that Cam led it because he did way better than I would have been
you.
able to. So,
You
but
keep
yeah.
forgetting names.
it's all right.
Stupid names.
That's fine. Names are tough. I was even having a hard time when I was watching. I'm like, okay, who?
Like, wait, which guy is who?
Yeah, because
Well,
it
it's
was
hard.
all over the place.
a lot of the
Hoff
time.
Markman, who's that?
Well, they're interviewing like 12 dozen people, and it just shows their name real quick on the side.
It felt,
and
like,
they are-
it felt like Game of Thrones. Like
No,
you're just
for
like,
real.
okay,
It did.
who's going where?
We got a Tyrion. We got a Tywin. We got a Bannister. What is this?
The guy with like the beaker voice kept wanting to put me
Yeah.
to sleep though.
I
couldn't.
He actually made me very sad because he
Got put through the ringer.
He
He was
did.
just
He
so
was Mark
excited.
Hoffman's best friend.
Didn't he go to
He
jail?
was so excited. Well, he went
He
to
got
jail because
held.
he had an Uzi, which was an illegal gun.
He had the Uzi. He had the anarchist cookbook.
Yes.
It's one of those situations where it's just everything is stacked against you in the wrong way at
Yes.
the wrong time.
And that's what he said.
It's
He
not
said-
even bad.
He said, I was just in the wrong place at the wrong time.
So he's kind of
And-
like the Zach of the group.
Yes.
I'm just messing, man.
Oh, gosh.
But no, he made me legit really sad because he believed in everything Mark Hoffman had to say.
Yeah.
And he was 100% behind him, and he got fooled so bad.
He got fooled
And
the
then-
worst out of everyone.
And what made me really sad too is how they started off and they asked him, like, can you say he's a genius? And he said, can I ask you a question?
Don't ask me that.
Please don't ask me that.
yeah.
And he was just like, because how do I answer that without putting him on a pedestal?
He said he was. Don't ask me. He was fantastic.
Yes. And he said he fooled a lot of people, including myself, and I felt like I was one of the
Well,
closest
and
ones to
think
it.
about it, like to make the impression on us. Think about like if Tony came out and was straight up murdering people.
God, you jerk.
But like no, like all of our experiences.
I'd be like, bull crap.
Right?
No.
Right?
Fight
Did you
to the
just
death
call him
that he
out?
didn't.
Exactly. No, we
Yeah.
would sit here and go like, no.
Shut up.
No.
Nah,
It's true.
I didn't.
It'd be 100% heartbreaking. I'm not going to lie.
Like it would go
But didn't
against
you guys come out
everything
and
we
say
know
in
and
previous
understand.
episodes, I'm the one the more likely to do it?
Yeah, but
I know that you'd actually do it, but
I'd be the guy like, I could see it.
Wait, how'd the guy die?
I saw
Oh,
the
yeah.
I saw the
I
snap
can see
happen
it.
one day. I saw it.
I could see it. I saw the hatred in his eyes.
Oh my goodness.
Somebody on the Instagram said something that I'm kind of shifty.
Yes.
Yeah,
I remember that.
It's true.
I remember that.
True.
But thank you guys for hanging out with us through this fun little adventure down something that happened in our own backyard.
Yes.
Yeah. A lot of weird stuff happens here in Utah.
It does. Like
Shockingly.
Utah is seriously one of the most cookie cutter places in the U.S. But like weird things happen occasionally.
Yeah.
I feel like we kind of fly under the radar, but when you really dive into it, we actually have quite a bit going on.
We got a lot of good history behind us.
Right on.
It's a dope place. But thanks for joining us. Please, if you have any comments, if you have any questions, leave them down below.
Yes.
Hit us up on the Instagram. We'd love to talk to you guys. We actually had a little Q&A not too long ago. Well, when this posts, it was actually like a month ago. But anyways, thanks for being part of this crowd, everybody. We love you.
Also, I was going to say, if you listen to us on any podcast program, throw a rating on there.
Yes.
Apple Podcasts, anything like that.
But
throw a
only if
rating
it's
on there.
5 stars.
Yeah. And if you made it this far, freaking hit that subscribe button.
Please.
We love you.
Thanks, guys.
Thanks.
Thanks for being part of this crowd.
Ciao.
Adios. Which means go with God.
That means to God.